Hello, I'm Mark Henderson. I'm speaking today on behalf of our writing group in Chapel-en-le-Frith. That writing group, which operates under the umbrella of Chapel Arts, has been operating for about 6 years. And for the last 3 years, I've had the pleasure and privilege of acting as tutor, or, well, facilitator maybe. Right at present, we're doing a few things for the Buxton Festival Fringe, which for obvious reasons has to be virtual this year. There's our little poster for it. Couple of things that we've been doing. One, we've been writing poems about the experience of lockdown before, during and after, well, what we hope will be after, segments. And we've also been writing pseudo folk tales, because a few weeks ago we had a little session where we talked about the difference between folk tales and written literary stories, and people have had a go at writing their very own folk tales. We'll be putting all this material and more together into a document. We'll make it into a PDF, and when that is linked to the Chapel Arts website from the Festival Fringe, people will be able to download that and read all our work for free, as well as accessing these little YouTube segments. So today we've got a couple of the folk tales and a couple of the lockdown poems. And to begin with, I'd like to introduce Julie Harratt and her husband Mike. And Mike is going to read on Julie's behalf her story, The Pixie and the Spelling Test. Mike.
Grown-ups seem to take great pleasure in filling children's time with pointless work activities. Mrs. Bagshaw is the worst. Every Monday, she gives us a list of 10 words. We have to learn how to spell and pronounce all 10 exactly. On Fridays, she selects 5 of the 10 words to test us on. Just 5. She grins. She knows that the 5 words we don't need have eaten into our footy, exploring and playing out time. It wouldn't matter so much if Mum didn't take the results of the weekly word test seriously. Mrs. Bagshaw sends them to be scrutinised. She's devious. Doesn't she know how the sellers of comics and sweets and the people who run Taunton Fair rely on me doing well? One week I decided to guess which of the 5 of the 10 words Mrs. Bagshaw would choose for the Friday test. The weather was good, adventure called. There was no time to waste. But oh dear, only 2 of the 5 words were tested. So a very poor show was reported. No comics that week, no sweets. My visit to the fair was threatened. Mum said that what I'd done was gambling. She hoped I hadn't inherited the gambling gene from Uncle Danny. That got me thinking. Uncle Danny once told me, after he'd had a really big win, that he'd bumped into a Cornish pixie on the way home from the Oddfellows' Arms. The pixie had told him which horse would win the Quantle Gold Cup. I'd never seen a pixie, but there's been plenty of pixie activity at the bottom of the garden. Uncle Danny often takes young ladies there to see the pixies at play. I'm not allowed to go with them. Everyone knows 3 is a very unlucky number in the pixie world. I thought, if I set a trap, I could catch a pixie and ask him to help me find the 5 words that Mrs. Bagshaw will pick for the test. I found a box, cut a hole in the lid, put clover, shiny beads and water bowl at the bottom. Then, when the pixie tried to get the beads, he'd fall in and be trapped. But he'd have water to drink and clover to eat, so he'd be all right. I sprinted home after school on Monday, clutching the list of 10 words, and rushed to open the box. There was a jolly little chap inside, pointy ears, swinging arms, and legs that couldn't stop jigging. I explained about the spelling test and asked him to tell me which of the 5 words I needed to learn. "No problem, laddie." His voice was shrill and reedy, and his jolly dance didn't stop when he spoke. But he hadn't told me which words to learn. I put the lid back on, disappointed. However, when I looked at the dreaded list that night, 5 of the words were glowing. On the Friday, I scored top marks in the test. I went straight to the end of the garden to thank the Pixie. He was no longer jigging. In fact, he looked quite ghastly. Maybe he just needed fresh air and a run in the garden. So I lifted him out from the box and he staggered away into the bushes. I replaced the clover in water. I was sure he'd come back to help me again. On Monday, clutching my list of words, I ran back into the garden. The box lid was askew. I could see movement in the box and green like the Pixie's jacket. Yes, he was back. I lifted the lid. I only glimpsed the deadly coils before the adder struck, sinking its fangs into my right hand, which was gripping the list of words. My screams brought Uncle Danny running. After 2 days in hospital, at least I was excused from the spelling test. But I still felt ill and I couldn't use my right hand. As I was leaving the ward, a very stern nurse gave me an appointment to visit Physio the rapist the very next day. Now I knew this wasn't a good person. I'd heard Mum and Auntie Madge talking about one who lived in Taunton. An absolute monster, they said. So why would I have to visit one? Surely I'd been punished enough for cheating and for cruelty to pixies. I sobbed in the car. "Is your hand still painful?" Uncle Danny asked. "Just a bit," I cried, "but I've learnt my lesson. Please don't make me visit a monster as well." I carefully read out the instructions to meet Physio the rapist the next day. The car rocked with Uncle Danny's laughter. "Perhaps the best lesson, laddie, is that time spent learning spellings and pronunciation is never wasted."
Oh, thank you. Julie, that's a lovely story, and Mike, thank you very much for reading it. Never trust pixies. I think we should all know that. And learning to spell is a very good thing. Not long ago, I'd made a spelling mistake in one of my short stories, and when a reader pointed it out to me, I blushed prettily. But enough. Now, a lockdown poem. Simone, you have a poem for us, I think.
Hi, I'm Simone, and I'm going to read a poem called Appleton-le-Moors. A quaint Yorkshire village with sheep roaming free, our cottage overlooking fields stretching for miles. The 2 of us and a reluctant teenager in tow. A few days away from the stressful routine, enjoying February's cold, crisp, short days. Snowdrops emerging from winter adorning the verges. Rubbed up with coat, scarf, hat and gloves. Perfect weather for exploring those hills. Then returning to our cosy cottage to unwind, curled up with a cup of Yorkshire tea and a scone, watching the weak winter sun setting. And what would it be like today? We're free to travel the world, but COVID-19 has stolen our time. The world is on lockdown, the cottage lying empty, no one admiring the beautiful view. The village sleepy and peaceful, the sheep with lambs, a beautiful day for walking, shorts, t-shirt, hat and sun cream, trees in full leaf, blossoms and flowers emanating scents into the clean air, and returning to the cottage, sipping a cool drink in the shade of a tree in the garden. Maybe next year we can return, just the two of us, hoping the virus is buried for good in the depths of winter, when spring is bursting at the seams, daffodils carpeting the verges, walking in the hills, watching the newborn lambs jumping about, and returning to the cottage, curled up with a cup of Yorkshire tea and a scone, watching the sun setting.
Oh, thank you, Simone. That's, well, it's lovely, looking back and looking forward. And let's get past this. Great, nice lockdown poem. I love it.
Thank you. And that backdrop behind is Appleton-le-Moors with the snowdrop.
I guessed it must be together with the snowdrops. It's a beautiful backdrop.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move on. Okay, and we have another of our made-up folk tales. Caroline, you have our story about Simon the Pieman.
Hi, I'm Caroline with my folk tale called Simon the Pieman. Many moons ago in the parish of Wirksworth, there lived a carpenter called Simon with a long-suffering wife called Anne. Simon worked hard and travelled the area on his trusty steed Bandit. One day, as he was enjoying a flagon of ale at the local inn, a stranger spoke to him. He was called John. John was also a woodworker who whittled spoons and bowls. He too travelled on his favourite mount Fireblade, which he bought from the local blacksmith. But John was much thinner than Simon. "Do you go to Matlock Village on Saturdays?" asked John. "There's a pie shop that bakes pies that can't be bettered. Many men gather there. They all have worthy steeds." "I haven't yet been," Simon admitted, "but on the next fine spring Saturday I will." A few weeks later, the weather was clear, and so Simon readied Bandit. "Husband dear, where are you headed this fine morning?" asked Anne. "I'm off to Matlock to meet a friend. I shall bring back pie." He set off gently so that his heavy frame wouldn't injure Bandit, but soon he was galloping towards his destination. What John had told him was true. Many men with fine steeds gathered at the pie shop. He complimented their saddles as they complimented his bridle. John wasn't there. Simon consumed 2 of the pies he purchased and rode home. "Only 1 pie?" remarked Anne. "Yes, my love, I was hungry from the ride." The same thing happened the next week, and the next. John was never at the pie shop. Simon's girth expanded, and Anne had to adjust his waistcoat. She started to despair. Then Simon met John again at the inn. "Haven't you been to Matlock lately? I've been, and it's true, an angel could feast on those pies, and there are many mounts to admire, but where were you?" "At what time of day were you there?" John inquired. "In the morning. I left afternoon." "Ah, I usually arrive in the afternoon and leave by early evening," John explained. They chatted more, and then John left on his trusty Fireblade, followed by an old spaniel. Next weekend, Simon went to Matlock on Bandit and arrived in the afternoon. He bought pies, but he saw naught of John. The same happened on the next weekend and the next. He always returned with only 1 pie. His clothes ceased to fit. Anne sighed. "I need money, dear husband, to buy you new clothes. I can't let these out anymore. Haven't you seen your friend? Are the men who gather by the pie shop all as portly as you? Is John?" "Yes, the men at Matlock are all large, but John was thin when I last saw him." When Simon saw John again at the inn, he exclaimed, "I've been to Matlock a dozen times this summer and still not seen you. You are still thin. Do you no longer go and eat pies?" "Yes, I go. I took to going in the afternoon in hope of seeing you, but I never did." "Ah, I took to going in the morning in hope of seeing you," Simon laughed. They agreed to meet at noon the next weekend. As John was mounting Fireblade, he patted his slim torso. I only eat half a pie because Mabel is partial to them and she always comes with me. The next fine Saturday, Simon was preparing Bandit when Anne said, "Husband, I worry. You've grown so fat. You may soon need to purchase a larger horse. Have you seen your friend again yet? Has he also widened?" "Dear wife, Bandit is strong enough for two of my size. Yes, I did see John. He remains slim, but his wife Mabel goes to Matlock with him and shares the pies." "Then I'll come with you today, dear husband, and do likewise." Simon had no choice. He told her that Bandit was strong enough to carry them both and that John's wife would be in Matlock. So off they went. Anne forbade him to gallop. When they reached Matlock, they drew stairs. There were few women and none around the pie shop. They dismounted and made some of the horses. Then up galloped John on Fireblade. "Where's your wife?" asked Simon. "At home, of course." John bade Anne hello. "But you said she came with you and ate pies." "No, I said Mabel ate the pies." John laughed and pointed at the old spaniel that trotted behind him. Simon laughed as well, but didn't tarry, and returned home with Anne in good time. The damage was done, though. Within a year, Simon's heart gave out as he tried to drag his bulk onto Bandit's back one cold winter morning. But he is not forgotten. To this day, on many a summer weekend, men still gather in Matlock for lunch, many on Fireblades and Bandits, admiring each other's rides. Some bring their wives, but still the question on everyone's lips remains, who ate all the pies?
Now we know the origin of that well-known question. And of course, for those who don't know, Matlock, or rather Matlock Bath at least, is a weekend gathering place for bikers, and Fireblades and Bandits are bikes. Caroline, that was very nicely turned, thank you. And that leaves really just me. I'm not a poet, not really, but well, everyone else is writing lockdown poems, so I thought I ought at least to have a try. This is just called Lockdown. Evening spoke low and slow in a tongue we half understood, sighed and purred as you squeezed it between soft palms. Montage of flowers, mosaic of sun and cloud, odour of petrichor after showers, flavour of raisins. It was a magenta time, a time for Mozart and Collins novels, a blackbird enchanting from a white poplar over a fractile sanctuary of garden. You wore shorts and t-shirt and lamentable trainers, and your eyes smiled fine and knowing over the new forest, heathland, heatherland, ponies, deer grazed where we were grounded. We could hear breeze among branches, traffic faint and far. Could we asked, be happier than we are? Noon simmers in solitude, muses under blue. I hold your hand 100 miles away, watching grass grow, neighbours nod and doze. A somnolence of bees, a scent of amber, a taste of Saint Agur, Pyncheon on the picnic rub. White anthems of Tallis lamenting the blackbird's sunstruck silence. Back of my eyelids, your imagined eyes smile grey at what we might find new in the new forest. Heathland, heatherland, ponies, deer wandering where we went. But now we'd hear silence, solitude, summer bird songs spare. We'd but pollute the peace if we were there. Lost leaves will whirl, brown as your hair once was, wind dreich from Denmark, driving off the rime rigid on morning grass and aging limbs. In that tomorrow we will dream of dance, but take our time, breathe, listen, taste, and let the grey day grow at its own pace. Drink tea, say what we'll hope to see, and then, because we don't want all our recollections lost, drive slow across the heathland, heatherland, hear echoes of memory, see ponies, see the deer, and savour then the fading of the year. We lived in this place once. We loved it then. Let's hope to live and love it once again. And that's that. Well, thank you all very much. Julie, thank you, and thank Mike as well for that contribution. Caroline, another lovely story. And Simone, not only a lovely poem, but also your very hard work in making these recordings and turning them into YouTubes. Okay, I hope to see you all again soon. Bye for now.